You're listening to Forging Fluidity with Savannah Wishart and Griffin Coombs, where we humbly navigate the idea of primal purpose, exploring conversations around physical, psychological, and spiritual well-being on the quest for a truly conscious and meaningful human experience. I'm Griffin, and my co-host is Savannah. She's a self-love expert and fine art photographer, and she uses life coaching and forest bathing photo sessions to create conscious containers for people to lean into vulnerability and explore their relationship with themselves.
And Griffin is a body awareness and breathing expert who uses targeted physical training and stress resilience coaching to help people become more physically capable and emotionally grounded.
If you're familiar with astrology, this is your horoscope on steroids. Human design is a pseudoscientific yet deeply intricate system that combines several ancient philosophies with modern quantum mechanics, with the purpose of helping each unique human being understand how they're meant to live their life. As a card-carrying member of the Skeptics Club, I know the urge to dismiss ideas of this nature. But true wisdom comes from discernment about what is useful, regardless of whether or not it's objectively true. Savannah and I have both found human design to be useful personally and professionally, empowering us to lean into aspects of ourselves that we might otherwise have kept hidden or tried to change. And we're not unique in this regard. Human design can be considered a tool on the radical journey of self-acceptance, and that being the foundation for navigating all of life's opportunities. So listen with an open mind and let us know your own experience with human design. Enjoy this week's conversation.
Welcome back to another week at Forging Fluidity with myself, Savannah Wishart, and my lovely co-host, Griffin Coombs. Today we are diving into at least the surface level conversation around human design. And I don't have that exact definition of what that means, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Griffin. How would you explain on a very basic level what the system of human design is?
I'd be happy to. Caveat, I am not a certified or official human design expert, but I've spent some time looking into it, studying it, applying it to my own life, experimenting. And the best way, I usually describe it as something pseudoscientific, kind of out there, like astrology. It incorporates astrology. And I usually say that it's a mix of astrology and a bunch of other things, but I want to make sure I can actually tell people what those things are. So it's basically a modern, within the past 50 years, I don't remember exactly the year, but a guy made it up, or it came to him in a vision, and it's quite a coherent, complex system that incorporates astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the chakra system that you might be familiar with from yoga or Vedic philosophy, the Kabbalah, and also quantum mechanics. And similar to an astrology reading, you basically enter your birth info, time, place, date, and it spits out a chart that includes, depending on how deep you want to go, everything about how you're supposed to live your life and interact with the world. And you can go as deeply as you want with human design. I certainly haven't gone nearly as deep as I could. I thought of this year, 2025, as being the year that I'm going to give it an honest shot, because I think with a lot of things and especially something like human design or astrology that isn't really super scientific, you got to take a leap of faith, and I'm as big a skeptic as anybody else. I, even just years ago, never would have had space for this type of thing. But it also was really strange when I first discovered it and started really learning about my own design, how scary it was, scarily resonant. And it almost felt like a bit of permission to be a little bit more of myself and to let go of unhelpful outside influences. Mm-hmm. So if you are a skeptic, I just encourage you to listen with an open mind, because even if something isn't super scientific, it's a possibility that it's just something we don't quite understand yet. Or even if it's total bullshit, if it provides a useful lens for us, I think that's what wisdom is all about. Really, it's not about what's objectively true all the time. It's about what's helpful for us. And in my case, human design has been mostly helpful. So we'd like to talk about it a little bit today. So, Savannah, where do you think we should go from here?
Yeah, thank you for the very in-depth intro. I think also it is whenever I tell people about, or I ask them, oh, what's your sign? And then I followed up with, do you know your moon and do you know your rising and things like that. And I always like have a little disclaimer attached to it of, I don't take this stuff religiously, but I think it's interesting to use as a guide or as something that's just kind of helpful, and it could be just a placebo effect even, but I don't see that as a bad thing, because unless you use it as a crutch. So there is the difference between having it be something that's helpful in a positive way and using it as a crutch or an excuse. So if you look at your astrology reading in the newspaper and it's like you're gonna have a shitty day, and then you make your day shitty, then that's really not not very helpful. But if you're having a shitty day or something, and then I have the CoStar app on my phone, which is you can input your same birth information and it has your full chart with where your planets are and all of that. And then if it's kind of a shitty day, then maybe I'll go look at what my reading is for the day, and then it's saying like, okay, like in this time of your life, this is going on, and so this might feel this way. And then it's like, oh, okay, like it's maybe not all about me right now, and it just relieves a little bit of the pressure of like, I'm supposed to have everything in control, and I'm responsible for everything, and I'm carrying the weight of responsibility on my shoulders. And maybe something with the planets have something to do with it. And it sounds silly to the scientific mind if I say something like that, and anyone who's really deep in science is going to be like, I just can't wrap my head around how like a planet can impact you. But I don't know. I mean, the moon impacts the tide, so why would a planet not impact something else? Like you just never know. And so it's kind of being curious through the lens of possibility, and kind of similar with supplements, I think, is like, if you're not being crazy and obsessive and you're just kind of experimenting with supplements, maybe there's that one supplement that lengthens your life a little bit more, gives you a little bit more vitality, and it's just like, you're not really ever going to know, because you're not going to have a clone of yourself that didn't do it, and and then yourself that did do it, and have that direct comparison. So I don't know. So same with human design. I'd say, well, let's go into the different types. And also I think I'm in a similar position of, I don't know if I would ever not believe in it, but I would probably have been in a different space in my life where I felt more skeptical about it. And it's just really helpful now to, as you said, I liked what you said about like giving yourself permission and seeing yourself through a different lens and recognizing, I think for both of us, a big part of the understanding of it is the decision-making process. And so just understanding that like as humans, we're all wired so differently, and that's okay. And the world is created for a certain way of working, a certain way of following the path of the status quo, and it doesn't work for everyone. So permission is a great thing to focus on. I know you have the profiles in your brain, so we can go into those. I'm a manifesting generator, and Griffin is a projector. So we're also coming at this through different lenses of our own experience and different profiles.
Before we even go into the types that Savannah just mentioned, we first want to You can put your own information into any free human design site and get a pretty good foundational reading of your own chart. And then from there, you can Google that type or that profile or that authority. All of these terms we'll get into, and you can get really good information on it. So you don't need like a professional human design reading to get the basics of your chart or your design. All you have to do is enter your info. There's, I think, myhumandesign.com is one. I use mybodygraph.com because they call the chart a body graph. It's kind of a map of your body. And yeah, from there, it will tell you all that stuff. Then just Google it. And you kind of get a really good sense of the major foundational parts of your design. So when you type in your birth info, you will find a chart that has 9 centers in the body. It looks a lot like the chakra system if you've ever looked at that yogic philosophy, but instead of 7 centers, there's 9 of them. And you'll see that some of them are colored in and others might be empty, blank. And then they have all these channels, these little roads going between them all, like connecting a bunch of them. And some of those will be filled in, some of those will not, or some of them might be filled in just halfway. And these channels have what are called gates, which is basically the way their connecting point to each of these centers. So you might not have a whole channel, like a whole road between 2 centers filled in, but you might just have that gate to that channel that is active for you, which gives you a little extra flavor of that channel. There are, I believe, 64 gates, so we won't get into specifics of gates. And then when 2 gates connect via a channel, there are a whole bunch of combinations there. So we're going to keep it simple today and just look at the centers themselves, the 9 centers, and what those tell us. Because the combination of what you have defined and not defined, meaning if you see those centers filled in or not filled in, the combination of that will determine what your type is. And so there are 5 types. There are generator types, and there are actually 2 generator types. There's a regular generator and a manifesting generator. Savannah's a manifesting generator. There are also projectors, which is what I am. There are reflectors, and there are manifestors. And all of those types, again, you get to that by which centers do you have defined versus undefined. And then in some cases, it has to do with a certain center being connected to another center. But just in general, that's going to tell you your type. Once you know your type, that's probably the biggest thing. And then you can just Google, okay, I'm a generator. What does that mean in human design? And you start to get some info there. So where do we go from here? Well, your type dictates a lot of you, but when you talk about where your opportunities come from, it dictates your strategy. Your strategy is how you are meant to take advantage of your opportunities. Mm-hmm. A generator and a manifesting generator, your strategy is to respond, whereas a manifestor's strategy is to initiate. And so those are 2 very different things. Now, how you interpret that, either I'm not enough of an expert, or it really is kind of broad and, not super specific or prescribed. So as a manifesting generator, how do you feel your strategy of responding to things has come up in your life?
And as you said, like, it seems like a very loose kind of idea or open to your own interpretation. So to me, I think responding feels like it connects to, what is it? Like following what feels good. That's the sign that you are living the design, or is that something else?
Following what feels good is a common piece of advice given to generators and manifesting generators. And the reason for that is because your type, and we can just talk about the generator type because it makes up about 2/3 of the entire population. So we live in a generator's world. You are a generator if you have a defined sacral center. So this is a center that is included in the chakra system, also in human design, and the sacral is the life force. So it is creative energy, it's sexual energy, and it's staying power. So it's the ability to keep going and going and going. A generator can work for longer than any other type, can really do anything for longer because they have this consistent source of energy in that sacral center. So a lot of generators fall into the trap of going and going and going because they can, but doing so in a job or relationship or project that doesn't inspire them or doesn't light them up. And so the trap is you don't want to be the Energizer bunny going in the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. So advice of doing what feels good is like for generators and manifesting generators is find what lights you up, find what gives you passion, gives you inspiration, and follow that. And if your Energizer bunny motor keeps going for that, well, that's fine because it's something that brings you joy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that was a good reminder of connecting it back to the sacral. Yeah, so I think related to the responding, the reason why I brought that up is because I've gotten a lot better at tuning in to understanding what feels good, because within the system, you also have the not self theme. And for me, that's frustration. I think anger also kind of pairs into that, but the main thing that I experience is frustration. And so it'll be when I'm working on a project, and usually it's with writing. I'll be trying to write something and I'll be inspired for a bit, or I'll have it on my calendar like, okay, I'm working on this article or this personal essay today, and I just need to do it. And then either I sit down and I just like immediately feel stuck with it, or I work on it and then I get to a point where I just feel stuck again. And then I just tune into myself and I realize that it's not what I need to be working on right now. And then there's something else that is inspiring me. And so responding to what feels good. And sometimes that might be switching topics or switching projects that I'm working on. And other times that might be, okay, I need to take 5 to 10 minutes and go do some squats, or I need to go on a walk. And I just need to move the energy through my body and shift the energy from mental to physical. And that usually will kind of, like the way that I visualize that is that I am a battery and moving my body is refilling it. And then I'll come back feeling refreshed, which is not really an exact answer to how I respond, but the response also is, I mean, it is. It's like, how do you respond to your energy and your inner knowing and being in tune with that inner voice? And in a less abstract way, then it's also like responding. I see it as having a dialogue with life. Like, okay, like this experience happened. And I think this is also easier for me to see through the lens of being a writer and writing about experiences and thoughts and philosophical things. And so maybe I have this experience and I'm responding to this thing that I saw, or I'm responding to a feeling that it invoked. And so it's almost like I think of it with poetry as well. Like poetry is like, you zoom in on the tiniest details of life, of like the dew on a leaf or something, and you create this dialogue with what it is that you're seeing or what it is you're feeling. And so to me, that's kind of the responding. And I think in a more work-minded way than like if I were to reach out to clients, like prospective clients or something like that, then it could be really as basic as like, oh, I saw this swimsuit ad pop up on my Instagram, and now that gives me the idea to work with, maybe apply my nude self-portrait photography in a commercial way with the swimsuit company, and I reach out to the swimsuit company. So that is also like, it's presented in front of my face, and then it creates like some curiosity, and then I write that email and send it.
I'm really glad you used those examples because they are perfect and they're not obvious to people who first learn about this and think that response has to be something super literal, like somebody actually has to ask you something and you respond, and that's the only way opportunities come. And so I've heard these examples before, that you can respond to a feeling or a thought that pops into your head, or a perfect example of seeing like a Pinterest ad or something. You see something online, or you drive by and see a sign somewhere, anything that inspires you. You're also responding to an internal need for physical movement or for taking a break from a project or whatever. All of those count as responding. And you as a manifesting generator versus a regular generator are going to typically have more of a need for variety and more of a need for physical exertion. So what they say to manifesting generators is that you don't need to apologize for having multiple interests, for bouncing from thing to thing, and from sort of doing things your own way.
Yeah.
And the only difference between, in terms of the body graph of a generator and manifesting generator, again, they're the only types who have a defined sacral, have that creative energy, that staying power. And a manifesting generator also has some powerful center called a motor center, doesn't matter what that means, connected to the throat, because the throat is the center of manifestation, of bringing things to fruition. And so you are not a pure manifester because you have that defined sacral center. So you are meant to be doing things, responding to things, and making them happen, but doing them in your own unique way, your own unique path, your own collection of interests that may not make sense to other people, and going at a pace that is typically faster than other people is all normal for the manifesting generator. So you're kind of the cool aunt or the cool uncle who's got does a million different things and has a super funky style, and you start a book and then stop it halfway through and go on to a different book or a project or whatever.
Yeah.
And the advice that's given is like, if something doesn't feel right for you anymore, if it lit you up a week ago and is no longer lighting you up, you have permission to move on from it. And that's why, I like human design, because somebody that I recently met and connected with through human design, I forget what we were talking about, and they said, all we're really looking for is permission for anything. That's all humans really want most of the time, is like permission. And I thought, it's like you said at the beginning, that's all it is. It's just another, when you give language to certain things, like remember when everybody discovered introversion versus extroversion, and all of a sudden, if you were introverted, you weren't socially inept. You weren't just shy. You weren't a weirdo. There was language that you could put to it. And so human design, because yes, these types, there's 5 of them, but when you get super specific into the profiles and the channels and the gates and the variables and all these little things that add your own unique flavor to your personality and your motivations and your purpose and everything that goes into your design, then it's permission to be who you are. And some of these things that might be weird, it's another lens to offer you the choice to be less self-conscious and less influenced by others and more comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
And until that becomes disempowering, I think it's cool and it's positive. So just tying that back to the manifesting generator thing, it's like if something no longer interests you, it's okay to let it go. That would be the advice for a manifesting generator.
Yep. Yeah, and for me, for me personally, I guess I really connect it. I continue to connect it back to mental health, and just like we've talked about it so many times before, but we live in a world where everyone's being diagnosed with ADHD because the world is designed for you to automatically be ADHD. That's the world that we live in. So you need to take some personal responsibility and decide to be different and to not be that way, and to create a toolkit for you to live differently. But we really started to dive more into this a few years ago, I think, in our conversations, when a bunch of people I knew in Sweden were suddenly like, oh, I have an adult diagnosis of ADHD. And they were talking about how like they struggled to respond to emails or something, and that was a sign that they had ADHD. And I was like, ooh, I struggled to respond to emails too. Maybe I'm also broken. And then I was like, I already struggle with depression and anxiety, and I self-treat those with supplements and lifestyle practices. I don't want another mental health label on top of that. And so I was very stubborn about it. And then we kind of leaned more into this, and I was like, no, like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to follow what feels good. I'm supposed to pivot. I'm supposed to have a variety of interests. It's just that we live in a world that is not set up to accept and celebrate that. And it's not that you're broken, it's that you are wired differently. And for me, that's just something that I always come back to, and it has helped tremendously for me to not put myself into that category. And there was, oh my gosh, it really annoyed me. A couple weeks ago, there was a human design profile on Instagram, and it had this goofy little breakdown thing of like each slide was one of the profiles, and it was like, this is what your morning looks like as a manifesting generator, and all of the other ones. And it said like, and so it had like a coffee cup in the middle of it, and then it had just like little words all around it. And it said ADHD medication. And I commented, and I was like, no, the whole point of the exact point of understanding that you are a manifesting generator is that you don't need ADHD medication. It's that you are not
that
ADHD.
That is the most disempowering thing in the world. I
got so mad. And then I commented on it.
Here's how to know this is your design and how you're supposed to be. You take medicine to stop yourself from being you.
Yes.
That's how you know. What the hell?
I commented on it. There were all these ADHD people, ADHD manifesting generators, and they're like, oh, I feel so seen. And I commented, and I was like, no, this is not, you're doing this wrong. This is exactly, and my comment has continued to get a lot of likes from people and clapping emojis, because that's the whole point.
Good.
Permission to be yourself. God damn it.
Yeah, and that's a huge idea in human design, is conditioning, meaning how we've been shaped into things that are not right for us, how we've been strayed away from our own design, and the deconditioning process, which is unlearning the things that are not helpful for us and don't respect who we are. And for someone like a manifesting generator, it would be unlearning the idea that you're just ADHD, or you're just a scatterbrain, or you can't commit to anything just because you have multiple interests and you pivot, which is really exactly how you're supposed to be. For other types, like for manifestors, so I'll get into a couple of the other types. Again, generator types, that's generators and manifesting generators, make up about 2/3 of the population. Yep. The next most common type are projectors. I'm a projector. A projector makes up roughly, 22-ish% of the population. And they're supposedly the newest type. And if you were to look up how, again, this guy, Ra Uruhu, he had a typical white American guy name, and I don't know where this sort of spiritual pseudonym came from, but he claims that projectors are the newest type. They came onto Earth a couple hundred years ago, and we are the ushers of kind of the new age, teaching people how to work and live more efficiently and harmoniously and to use their energy properly. Projectors do not have a defined sacral center. So that energy, that staying power, we don't produce it inside of ourselves. That doesn't mean that we can't have staying power sometimes, but usually that's channeled through somebody else, a generator type who has it. Projectors are meant to be the guides, especially the guides for people, for generator types, because generators types are really good at doing stuff, doing what lights them up. But sometimes they need perspective. So the image that I've always gotten is like the generator is in the forest, cutting down trees, having a great time blazing a path, especially a manifesting generator. And the projector is in a helicopter from above, looking from a bird's eye view, radioing down to them, telling them which way to turn or which direction to channel that energy. The projector conditioning is that we're lazy. And they say projectors aren't meant to work, they're meant to guide. Now, it doesn't mean that we're not meant to contribute things or offer value. It's just that the value that projectors offer are typically more in the quality of their insights, their wisdom. Typically, they're the type who study and master a system to the point where, you know, you picture that like stereotypical martial arts master where you sit down with him and it's like he gives you one little adjustment, like one saying or one phrase that changes your whole life. And it's like, that's the idea of the projector. It's like what they see and the way that they see it and the way they understand whatever their system of mastery is the value that is kind of like intangible. And so they spend all of their time and their effort mastering and studying and really deeply knowing systems and people more than other types. They cannot sustain work the way a generator type can without eventually burning out, or, you know, experiencing their not self theme, which is just to say the negative emotion or the negative experience that we all live when we're not following our design. So when you put a generator type and a projector together, then you've got this really complementary thing where the generator gets guidance of how to use their energy and the projector gets energy to feed off of, energy to guide, and also energy that comes through them because we don't produce it ourselves in the sacral center. And that doesn't mean literal guidance all the time, like, I need your help, can you guide me? Although that is a projector's dream. We love being asked for our opinion and for our guidance. In fact, we need to be. But it's more about, even on an energetic level, that's not even conscious. There's like this interplay of energy being produced by the generator and energy being guided by the projector. So you can see how in a generator's world, where work ethic is often judged by how long your hours are, how hard you're grinding, how long you're going for. And this is one of the things that first really validated human design for me, because I always thought of myself as lazy because as a kid, I just wanted to get things done. I just wanted to be done with things. I didn't want to draw things out. It's not that I didn't want to do anything of value, but it was just like, do I have to spend hours on homework? So I would just like try to blast through it because I was just like, I'm not here to work. That's the line for projectors. We're not here to work. We're here to guide. And so that just made so much sense to me, where I'm just like, 2 hours of homework? Like, no, thank you. Like, let's just get it done as efficiently as possible so I have time to just exist, to rest, to study what interests me, to guide other people, you know. So yeah, so there's kind of the two most common types, generator types and projectors. There's some ways that they can both be conditioned, and how we have to kind of unlearn the narratives that don't fit what our society has been built upon.
And that is why we work so well together.
Yes, amen.
And then just to like kind of tie in our collaborative nature, this gets really complicated really fast. Like if you first look at your human design chart, you're probably going to feel very overwhelmed. But something that you brought up kind of recently was that we complete a channel together. And so I just want to like touch on that idea, because if you have, because like I've been overwhelmed with the human design stuff, and it's like I don't even know where to begin with what these roads are between the channels or between the centers, and like what it means when they're half full and fully full. And so you brought that up a few weeks ago, that we both have half of a channel full in a way that complements each other, and I don't remember what that channel is.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember what that channel is either.
Oh, okay.
but yeah, you can have, absolutely, if you have like a half a channel, or what's called like a hanging gate. So you've got these energy centers. Again, just picture the chakra system, or hopefully if you're listening, you've looked up your own chart by now and you can see some of these things. They're just, you know, a big triangle on the middle of your body. And you'll either have a channel that connects that center to another center. So let's say, you know, your throat center to your spleen center. You might have one of those roads completely filled in, and that means you have that channel active. So something connecting your throat to your spleen. But maybe Savannah has half that channel, the one attached to the throat, and I have the other half, the one attached to the spleen. I'm just making that up. I don't remember which channel we have. And then when you get together with that person, then that channel is active because the two of you complement that channel. And each channel has its own flavor because of the center that it comes from and what that represents in life. So there's just the depth you can go, which I'm not qualified to talk about, and also we would never have time for. It's just really unlimited. So you said, I don't know where to start. Most human design people, even those who are actually qualified to like give readings, unlike me, I'm just passionate about it and like to talk about it, would say you start with your strategy and your authority. And that is based on your type. Strategy is based on your type. So generator, manifesting generator, projector, reflector, or manifester. And your authority is based on which centers you have defined or undefined, and we can talk about those as well. So I don't want to go into all types, because I think we should maybe just talk more about our own experience. And then if people want to learn more about types, you know, you can do that from someone qualified or through Google. But like, after projectors, there are manifestors. I think they make up about 10% of the population. And they have also no defined sacral center, but they do have a defined throat that is connected to a motor center. So it's like, they're like half projector, half manifesting generator, where their job is to initiate. That's their strategy. And they're here to, let's say, make an impact. They're the only people who can just create something out of nothing. No response, no invitation, they just initiate. And then you have reflectors, who make like less than 1% of the population, and they have zero defined centers. So they don't have any energy that naturally produces itself, and they are called reflectors because they become a reflection of those of us who do have those defined centers. And their strategy is, I forget what a reflector strategy actually is, but
Don't
that's
you
okay.
have to wait for a month? Is that what you've said before?
That's the authority.
Okay.
So again, the strategy is how you are meant to how your opportunities come to you. So mine as a projector is to wait for the invitation. Yours is to respond as a generator type. When you now, how do you respond? Or how do you know if something's the right opportunity for you? Then you turn to your authority.
Okay.
So strategy is how opportunities come to you. Your authority, inner authority, tells you whether those are right or what to do about them. So if you have your emotional center defined, that's called your solar plexus, then you are automatically an emotional authority. So when it comes to big things, to understand how you respond to those things, so you are an emotional authority manifesting generator, you need to wait. They say wait 24 hours because that's the length of like the emotional cycle, and allow yourself to go through the emotional wave. So let's say you're an emotional authority, you're a manifesting generator, and you just get a call that says you've got a job offer, or you got the job that you've been applying to. Hooray! So before you accept that job, give yourself 24 hours, because during that 24 hours, you'll probably go from the highs and the lows and everything in between. Oh my God, I'm so excited, I can't believe it, all the way to like, oh, I don't know if I really want this actually, all the way to, am I even really qualified for this? Imposter syndrome, blah, 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 all the way back to, well, this is good. Like I can start to save for this thing and that thing and everything in between. And you just have to ride that wave. And then the next day, when that wave settles, the emotional authority is ready and clear on what that decision is.
Yep. That has been that's one of the things that has just been so good for my own mental health, because prior to understanding all this stuff, I would go through those emotional cycles and I would get pulled into the low part of that roller coaster, because if I was like, oh yeah, I'm super excited about this, and then it'd almost feel like an impulsive decision of like being excited, and then the next day I would feel like that low point, and I'd be like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Like, why? I thought it was the right decision, all this stuff. And so I would just beat myself up and go into a deeper hole with that. So that has been really good for me to understand. And so it's been this it's a little bit frustrating sometimes, because when I have a lot of stuff hanging in the air in a week or something, and I have these situations come up, and it's like, okay, now I have this 24-hour roller coaster period, and then I'm detached from it. I'm detached from the emotional experience. I'm able to witness it, but then I have all these other things, and then I go into another 24-hour window of this emotional roller coaster, and it's like, okay, it's just like riding the waves right now, which is fine, and it's really good to have the clarity of what that is. But I think we didn't really dive into the projector invitation cycle. So if you would like, I would love if you kind of dive into what that looks like for you and how you need to be invited into opportunities.
Sure. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to talk about signature and not self. And then I'll segue into what you had just mentioned, because you had mentioned that it can be frustrating at times when you were sort of getting caught up in the emotional wave. When you don't live your design, you experience what they call not self. And so the theme for your type, generators, manifesting generators, is frustration. So when you say those words, it's like the keynote for your type is like, you weren't living your design, you were confused, getting lost in the emotion, and it was frustrating. Your signature is satisfaction. So when you are living your design, or when you're experiencing satisfaction, it's a good indicator that you're doing something right, human design wise. So if you're listening to this and you're a generator type, you're looking for satisfaction and you know something's off when you feel frustration. Especially some things, obviously we can't avoid frustration in little things, but with big things in your life, like if frustration is the theme, something's wrong. Go ahead.
I just, before we segue again, I just want to go into that briefly, because that, the not self theme, I think it's one of the places where it's a good opportunity for a skeptic to kind of step in and be like, well, of course you feel frustrated. Everyone feels frustrated, like whatever, like that doesn't mean anything. Or like you feel angry, or what is yours? What is your not self theme?
Mine is bitterness, and anger is actually the manifestors. So these are, and this is something you might say back to the skeptic, which is, yes, but these all kind of mean the same thing, but they're very subtle differences.
Yeah.
And they have to do with the type. Like anger and frustration are not the same, but they're closely related. And so the way a manifestor gets angry, I mean, real anger, we're talking pure anger, like get out of my way. That is very manifestor versus frustration. Like I want something and it's just not right. And that's different. And versus bitterness, the projector, which is like, you know, almost resentment. Yeah. And so like so they are different. And the waiting for the invitation, I mean, I think they say, I'm not just saying this because I'm a projector, that being a projector is one of the hardest types because you've been conditioned so far away from what your design actually is. An example of that would be how most of us are taught to pursue opportunities, especially in the US, like go get them, you got to be a self-starter, go. And I think attitude-wise, that's helpful usually, but the projector has a penetrating aura. The projector is the seer. The projector sees people, and the projector understands it's in their design to do things more efficiently than other people, especially non-projectors, realize or can see. So because of that, our strategy is not to respond, but to wait for the invitation. That's literally the projector's strategy. Mm-hmm. And the invitation comes from recognition. So we are here to be recognized, not by everybody, because we're not for everybody, but the right person who needs the right projector sees that person gets it, or that person has ideas like that just makes sense, or et cetera, et cetera. If not, you become the projector who's offering unsolicited advice. And this was me for most of my life, where it's just like, yeah, you know, because nobody likes that person. Like you're doing something, you don't want the person coming like, excuse me, did you know that there's a way that you could do this better? Do you know there's a way you could do this more easily? Or did you know, well, actually, that's not really true. You know, you're just raining on people's parades. And I was like this as a musician, where it's like, you know, I don't know, some ridiculously detailed, subtle detail that made me really fired up because I was a nerdy projector about music theory, but like wasn't important and people didn't care about, except the right people do care about it. So what you're supposed to do as a projector is you're supposed to learn. You're supposed to master your craft. You're supposed to do your thing, live your life, and let people see it. Let people see you being a master of it. And the right people who need your guidance will recognize that as something uniquely valuable and invite you to share your wisdom with them, invite you to guide them. This changed my life because I was a bitter projector before, and still can be, because I still look at people with different auras doing things half as well as I can, who know a fraction about the systems I've mastered compared to what I know about them. And I still find myself in a trap just looking at them and being like, why are they getting so many, you know, why are they teaching breathwork classes of 100 people and I'm, you know, I should be doing that. I'm better at it. I know more than them. And that's the trap projectors fall into, because we look at how the world should be in terms of our opinion, what we see that others can't, and we get bitter and resentful that other people aren't recognizing us for what we have to offer. And we almost every opportunity I've ever tried to get by initiating or by responding, by being like, hey, I want to do that. Hey, I can help. Hey, I can be the guy to help you. I have perspective. Look at me over here. Never works out. Even if it seems like it's gonna at the beginning, it just doesn't. And it's not disempowering. It's actually, I thought it was disempowering at first, because it doesn't sound like a very empowering strategy, like, oh, I have to sit around and wait. Well, no, you're actually supposed to be doing stuff to master your craft and learning and becoming the genius you're supposed to be, apparently. And the waiting is only for how long it takes for other people to see that. But that doesn't mean you stop honing your craft and becoming the best thing you can be. So once I realized that, it's like, oh, it actually takes pressure off of me to stop being like, hey, I have an opinion, or I have a way of seeing things and you need to know it, and here's how I can help. And more being like, I have a way of seeing things and I'm just going to put that out into the world in general, and who sees it and resonates it gets in touch with me and wants coaching from me or wants my advice or something along those lines. So that's the strategy of a projector, waiting for the invitation. And yeah, if you don't follow it as a projector, you don't live your design. Bitterness is what you experience. On the flip side, the signature of a projector who is living their design is success. So we are quite literally meant to be highly successful people if we are using our guidance superpowers the right way, which means not working and super hard for long hours, grinding ourselves into the ground, but finding where we have a unique slice of wisdom to offer and making sure that we are recognized and invited to share it. And the success comes from that. That's the projector in a nutshell.
I mean, if you don't know Griffin, he really embodies it with his expertise in his deep dive into his expertise into understanding different systems. So I'd say you are a very good representative of your species. Okay, I didn't hear what you said.
That's because my microphone just died, so we are switching to headphone audio. Sorry, everybody. But you know what? It's Mercury retrograde, and if you weren't a skeptic about astrology and human design before, we're just throwing that into the mix. Tech problems left and right. But I'm not even going to cut this in post-production. I'm going to leave this in here. Oh, boy. Yeah. So... I said thank you for saying that about my projectorness. I feel very recognized as a projector.
Yeah, of course. In terms of Mercury retrograde, everyone, you also missed 5 minutes at the beginning where I switched audio and I couldn't hear or speak or anything. So we're just rolling with it today. Yeah, I think like it really all comes back to, because I've been introducing the idea of human design to some people recently, some other projectors I know in my life, a manifestor friend, and then most recently a generator. And I've been kind of trying to help guide this person to just be curious about this process, because I do think it's really helpful. And a lot of it is like this person struggles with decision-making processes. Like, how can I make a decision? I never make the right decision. And I'm like, okay, but like you need to, it all comes down to knowing yourself and having a really deep understanding. And I feel like this is what a lot of our topics go back to, is like you need to sit with yourself. You need to get to know yourself. You need to tune into how your body feels and just get out of your mind. And for this case, it's like that 24-hour roller coaster, and being able to witness it rather than get drowned down by it. And then at the end of it, I think this person was like, okay, but then like, how do I make that decision once I'm through that 24-hour roller coaster? It's like, well, you need to be in touch with your gut. Like, you need to know what the gut feeling feels like when you make the right decision and you make the wrong decision. And maybe you're testing it out by like, you're walking through the forest on a trail and you come to a fork, and then you kind of feel in, like, maybe you close your eyes and you just kind of think like, okay, which direction should I go? And then you pay attention to how you feel when you go whichever direction, and then whether it ends up being like quote unquote right or wrong, then you're like, okay, like I went this way and I got lost, and this is how I felt when I made that decision. And then the next time it comes up, then you just play with that in little mini scenarios that don't have any consequence to them.
Yes, there is a quote from the founder or the creator of human design, and I can't remember it verbatim, but it's one that came up. I have had a couple of professional human design readings done, and there's a woman named Sam Zagar, so I recommend her to anyone who's interested in learning from somebody who's really mastered the system. She's a projector, and I think when it comes to systems mastery, I would want to be guided in something like this by a projector, preferably. So she checks all the boxes, and she's brought up this quote many times. It's not verbatim, but it goes something like, if you use your mind or if humans try to use their mind to make decisions, you'll see how dumb you really are. You'll see how stupid you really are. Because the mind, and this is just to your point, human design is about getting away from your mind as something to make inner decisions for you. You're entrusting your inner authority. Your mind is your outer authority for a lot of people, which has to do with how you guide other people. But in terms of your own decision making, like your authority is meant to be the guide. Now, if you want to not subscribe to human design or you want to stay skeptical, then you call it your intuition. But there is research that shows that those who had better interoceptive awareness were better at making decisions, better at predicting outcomes for the stock market, for example. And interoception is your awareness of your internal state, your connection to your body, your ability to feel, detect internal sensations. That could be, and that's physiological. Interoception is a physiological skill. It's a real thing. That is science. Mm-hmm. It's related to vagal tone, how strong your vagus nerve is, blah, 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 the nervous system. I will go on about that some other episode. But that could be the material explanation for what we call intuition, a connection to self. And if you think about your authority as intuition, that can be its connection to human design. Now, like you said, emotional authority is a little bit different, because when that 24 hours is over, how do you know what it feels like? And you've nailed it. It is an experiment. You have to actually put in the work to being present and to making the mistakes and noting what it felt like in your body, or what thoughts were going through your mind, or what the situation was, and adjust course accordingly. The same human design coach woman I just mentioned, Sam Zagar, her kind of slogan for her whole practice, her human design coaching practice, is, "This is my experiment time." She has like merchandise and stuff that say time on it. It just stands for "This is my experiment." That's exactly what it is.
Right.
Now, your authority as an emotional authority, it's less concrete about what that decision, that rightness or wrongness feels like. So you're absolutely right that you have to experiment. Some of us, mainly if you have a sacral authority, it's a little bit more concrete. And so those who are if you are a generator or manifesting generator, but your emotional center is undefined, then you are a sacral authority. And that truly is an immediate gut response. So they describe it as like a very emphatic uh-huh or uh-uh as a response. So whatever you're responding to, it's like, that's a yes, or nope, that's a no. And so if you have a sacral authority, number one, you don't have to wait 24 hours. It's right there. And number two, it's a little bit more of a definitive, immediate type of thing. So it depends on what your authority is, but still, you could call your gut feeling an intuition. It still requires you to be in touch with your gut.
I think also I want to just honor the skeptics who might be listening, because then it could be like you talked about the science behind introspection, and like that is a very real thing. And then the skeptic maybe is like, well, that's cool, but how does like my internal knowing know something about the stock market? And so I think it's also just being open to the idea that like we don't know like where these things are coming from. Like, I think we're connected to the plants and the animals and different things like that. And there's just these energy pathways of information that we can't see, so that science can't define. And this is an area where if you're a very scientifically minded person, because that is your profession or social conditioning or whatever, just that's where too much information can become a limitation, because there is just, it can close the window of what is possible in a way that you can't understand. And for me, I just always like the idea of like a feeling of a little bit of magic to life, and there are unexplainable things. And I don't like the idea like that, oh, we have to apply logic and understanding and science to everything, because I want there to be some mystery in the world, because it brings it more flavor, and it leaves you open to the possibility of the unknown, of things that you can't control, because we can't control everything, and really that is an illusion if we think that we can. So I just think that, you might not be able to explain this with chemistry or physics or whatever, but there's a lot of possibility here, and there's often no benefit to holding on to something as a skeptic of like, no, this can't work because X, Y, Z. Like, it could just be keeping you in the same place. And like, what if you open your mind, open your heart to the idea of like, well, but what if this doesn't make sense, and that's fine?
I think that's beautifully put, and helps kind of wrap us up, because as I wonder if we've talked about this, I feel like we have. As I get older, I said this at the beginning, it's less about what's true and more about what is useful and interesting. And I remember being in my early 20s and being obsessed with what was objectively true. And I was miserable. I was depressed. It wasn't helpful for me. It wasn't empowering. It wasn't magical. There was no magic. I mean, think about how much less interesting something like love would be if you were just thinking about it as neurotransmitters and chemical reactions inside of you, or as a survival mechanism. It's like those things may be true through a materialistic lens, but I don't think we're meant to live life through that lens. Just like a dog is not meant to see the world through the eyes of a snake. They might they are going to perceive not just their vision itself, but their nervous systems and the way that they're calibrated to respond to threats and connection and whatever is just going to perceive the same objective reality completely differently. A dog is not supposed to be a snake. And I don't think we are supposed to be skeptics about every single thing as we go throughout everything in your life. So this isn't to say everybody has to follow human design or even care about it, but it's just to say even if there's no way to describe this in scientific or even like remotely plausible terms, it's still, I as a skeptic find it to be really useful, and I have to suspend my disbelief about where it came from and this guy and all of its even language like aura and stuff like that but I just don't care, because it's helpful and it's cool and it's empowering and has helped me on the journey to self-acceptance. And self-acceptance, in my opinion, for me, is more important than objective materialistic truth. And I found the quote from Ra Uru Hu, the founder of human design. So the quote is, "If you follow your mind and let it tell you what to do, you'll see how stupid you really are."
I mean, it takes humility. So it takes a willingness to be humble to begin to step into this, because especially if you've just been on a trajectory your whole life of following like a status quo structure or scientifically based things and evidence-based things, then there is going to be like, it can be very humbling to be like, okay, this isn't all that there is to the world. There's a different layer, and I can't apply my evidence-based thinking to it. I have to turn inward. I have to use a different form of intelligence to lean into this. And so it's kind of like letting go a little bit of like, there is that world where that evidence-based process is very needed and important, and also can you open the door to this other world where you use a different type of intelligence, and by doing so you don't negate this evidence-based world. It enhances your lived experience and just adds a different layer to it. And so kind of finding the way to also dance between those worlds. And if you are one of these science-y, evidence-based people, then I would also just say, like, Google whatever you want for some sort of scientific thing, and you will find some sort of professional backing up whatever truth it is that you want confirmation for. Like, whatever you want to believe, there is an expert who is proving why it's true.
Amen. And I'm excited at one point when we talk about movement philosophy, biomechanics, breath science, and all that stuff, how all the research-based gurus are just canceling each other out with research, quote unquote research, that supports their claims. So it's the Wild West. We have, it's almost like we're ushering in a new era of where like peer-reviewed controlled studies are almost obsolete, because there's such an overload of information, and anybody can craft a study and publish a study, and it's like, you can, like you said, you can find research to support anything. So in a world where internet gurus cancel each other out, you've got to go back to rely on your own experience, your own lived experience, and your self-knowledge. And human design is just a fun and interesting tool to help you cultivate that. So hope you found this interesting. Let us know on Instagram, or is there a comment section in our podcast? Do they do comments on podcasts?
On Spotify,
you can tell who manages okay, great. Yeah. Who manages the upload on the platform, not me. So comment, let us know your design, your type, or your strategy, your authority, or anything that you've read about it that's shown some light on who you are and how you might experiment with that.
Yeah, and if now you feel like you feel a little bit more understood by yourself and maybe by the world. Till next time.